Okay, let's talk about creating tests. Have you ever designed one and then wondered, is this actually fair? Is this really measuring what my students learned? Well, it all comes down to one word: alignment. Today, we're diving into a really powerful framework from EdEx UTP that's all about making sure your assessments are accurate and effective. Let's break it down.
So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the absolute basics. What even is assessment? Then we'll get into the really crucial part: matching your learning goals to the right tools. After that, we'll look at a simple ratio for balancing how hard a test is, see it all work in some real-world examples, and wrap up with the single most important takeaway.
All right, first things first. Before we can align anything, we need to be on the same page about what we're actually talking about when we use the word assessment.
At its heart, an assessment is really just a concrete way to see what someone has learned. You can think of assessments as different kinds of measurement tools. Some of these tools are super formal, like a big final exam, but others can be way more informal, like just asking a few questions during a class discussion to check for understanding.
And these tools pretty much fall into two main buckets. You've got your formative assessments. Those are the ongoing, low-stakes check-ins that you do while the learning is happening. And then you have your summative assessments. Those are the big ones, the final, high-stakes evaluations that happen after a whole unit is finished.
Okay, now we are getting to the absolute heart of this whole thing: alignment. Because this isn't just about throwing a test at students. It's about picking the exact right tool to measure a very specific kind of thinking.
And check this out, this is so smart. The framework shows us that for those foundational skills, like just remembering and understanding facts, something simple like multiple choice questions works great. But if you want to see if a student can actually apply or analyze information, you need a different tool, like a short answer test. And for those top-tier skills, evaluating an argument or creating something new, you've got to use something more complex, like a big project. It's all about matching the tool to the task.
So we've matched our tool to the cognitive skill? Fantastic. But there's one more layer here, and it's a big one: making sure the assessment is actually balanced, so it's fair to students at all different ability levels. And that's the real question, right? How do you actually pull that off? How do you build a test that challenges your advanced students but doesn't completely discourage those who are still getting the hang of it? Well, the EdX UTP framework has this beautifully simple and honestly really memorable answer. It all comes down to this ratio: 4-2-2-2. So what on earth does 4-2-2-2 mean? It's actually a blueprint. For every 10 questions you write, 4 of them should be easy. Then you'll have 2 that are kind of medium-low difficulty, 2 that are medium-high, and finally 2 that are genuinely difficult. This simple structure makes sure you're getting a snapshot of the entire range of student understanding. All right, all of this theory is great, but let's see what it actually looks like when the rubber meets the road. We're going to look at 2 really clear examples from the EdEx UTP guide. Okay, first up, let's imagine a test for an academic writing course. Now's the perfect time to hit pause and just take a second to really look at how this test is put together on the next slide.
See how perfectly this lines up? It's brilliant. In Section A, they're just testing for basic remembering of grammar rules, so multiple choice is the perfect tool. Then Section B bumps it up a notch to applying that knowledge with a paraphrasing task. And finally, Section C goes all the way to the top, asking students to evaluate an argument in a full essay. It's a textbook case of perfect alignment. And now for our second example, which ties everything we've talked about together. This one maps both the difficulty ratio and the taxonomy right onto the question numbers. Again, I really recommend you pause here to trace how it all connects.
And here it is, all laid out. Look at that, the first 4 questions are easy, just checking for basic remembering. Then, questions 5 and 6 get a little tougher, medium-low difficulty, to test understanding. 7 and 8 ramp it up again, to medium-high, testing the ability to apply information. And finally, those last 2 questions are the difficult ones, really designed to see if a student can analyze. That is the 4-2-2-2 ratio and the learning levels working together in perfect harmony. So, after going through all the theory and the real-world examples, what's the big idea here? What should you really walk away with? It really comes down to just how powerful a well-designed assessment can be. And, this quote from the source material just says it perfectly. When you get this right, when your assessments are truly aligned, they stop being just a grade.
They become these incredibly precise tools that show you exactly where and how real learning is taking place.
And that brings us to the final, and maybe most important question. Now that you have this blueprint for building smarter, fairer, and more insightful assessments, how are you going to use it? What will you do differently on the very next test you design?